Okay. Great. Okay. So, like I said, my name is Allison Pilling. I live in Belleville, Ontario, and I'm a first-time author, newly self-published on Amazon.ca. And as I'll be sharing today, I took a fairly interesting journey that involved a 30-day writing challenge to get me here. And yeah, we'll just get started. So I wanted to just share the agenda. My plan was to talk about a half an hour or so, and then, open for discussions, any questions. And then again, I'm pretty casual, easygoing. So if things come up, please feel free to type it in the chat and or raise your hand. Like I said, I'll ask Robert to just kind of help me with facilitating that part of it if I don't notice. And we'll take them up at the end of the talk. So I'm going to be covering, how did the RIP book come to be? So where did this idea come from? Share my story of, yeah, essentially, it's even a little bit unbelievable for me to still say it. I became a widow at age 36. So I'll be sharing sort of my journey and how that came to be, and then how I moved forward with my grief journey after that. I'd also love to share, why do I do this work? What's pushed me into this world, and why do I feel compelled to do this work where I am so vulnerable, right? I step up every day. I actually say, like, I'm fear busting every day. I'm smashing limiting beliefs every day. Why do I put myself in that situation? Why am I doing this work? And as Robert had reflected, like, on the community resources and that type of thing, I'd like to share, who do I work with, right? What are the types of people? What are the things they're experiencing? And how I work with people. And then also, like, how to connect with me if that seems to make sense. So first of all, we'll start off with some fun. If anybody is interested in winning a paperback copy of my book, RIP, I'd ask that you type your birth date into the chat, and the closest one to June 12th will win. If we end up having something super close, like a couple that are, one away from each other, or the distance is the same, what we'll do is we'll go to the year, but you don't have to disclose your birth year if you don't want to do that. And you may ask, what's significant about June 12th? So June 12th is actually my husband, James Rowe. That was his birthday. So yeah, if you're interested in winning a copy of this, type your birthday in, the closest to June 12th. We'll follow up, get your name and email, just so I can get the address to have the book mailed to you. We can follow up afterwards. So while I'm talking, you're welcome to add your birth date in, and we'll follow up at the end of this talk. Okay, so now we get into, I guess, the meat and potatoes of this talk. How did Restoring Inner Peace book, come to be? How did I get this idea to pull this all together? And what started my journey in the whole life coaching world? So I'll start off. I have a bit of a unique story. Originally, I'm a small town girl. I was born in Belleville. I grew up in Belleville. My mom was a travel agent. My dad was an accountant. And, I lived a fairly, what I consider, normal life, middle-class life. I lived here until the end of high school, and then I went to the University of Waterloo. I took environmental chemical engineering there and completed my degree. I think it was a 5-year program with co-op, so I moved all around, and yeah, completed that, and then I moved into an engineering consulting career. So I am a licensed PEO. I'm a PEng for environmental chemical engineering. At school, I met my husband. So we're wondering how this whole love connection happened. We were in the same class, and we actually started dating in second year. So we would have been 19. And I would say during those influential years, right, in your 20s, early 30s, we really grew up together. So even with having the experience of going to school together where we were in the same space, we also did co-op. So I lived in Alberta, I worked in Quebec, all over Ontario, multiple times. So we had the experience of relationship together in the same geographical location, and then also the long distance relationship as well. So we really grew up together. We started our careers in Toronto after school, and we bought our first home there. So, and within 8 years of our relationship, we decided to get married. And, you know, we had that fairy tale setup, I guess, all those things that you wish and strive for your loved ones. We had the academics, we had the career, we had our home, we got married, we had dogs, and then we had kids. We have 2 kids together. So, you know, that went on for a few years, like maybe 10 years, we'll say, like for a long time. We were building this beautiful life together. And it was around the time when my children were very young. So my son was born in 2009 and my daughter in 2010. They're less than 15 months apart, very close. And I think a lot of us who are parents realize that your lives really shift, right? So we're typically focused on ourselves, right? Our own personal professional development. And then as couples, so reaching and achieving our goals as couples. And it was around this time where my husband, I had noticed, had started sort of distancing himself from our family. And I kind of thought that that was just part of what happens when you have really young children, right? The young children, a lot of the times are with the mom, especially with nursing and being off from work to help take care of them. So there's that sort of time demand. And it just a little bit shift in our relationship. So I actually thought, you know, everything was kind of normal. Things are just shifting and changing as our demands are shifting and changing. But we're still super strong connection. And this is what life looks like. And then things kind of started to progress a little bit more. My husband, James, he was a business owner. He owned an engineering consulting firm, him and a business partner, and their partnership had dissolved. So he was looking for a new career path and actually entered into financial advising. But what I found out very early on was that this would have been early in 2011. So my children would have been 1 and 2. I would have just been getting ready to go back to work, to my career. I was also in engineering consulting, but a different firm. James actually shared with me that he was battling with alcoholism. And at the time, this is going to sound a little wild, I was actually thankful that it was alcoholism. I had noticed some distancing behaviors. He wasn't spending as much time with the family. He had kind of been hiding away, which was very different than his normal behaviors. He was very extroverted, very much involved in the community, in his business. He did theater. He was a stand-up comedian, very extroverted. So to see him kind of pull away, I really was getting nervous. I was wondering, if there was some other illnesses going on. You know, we had lost some people to like brain tumors. We've seen like diabetes, like these different health issues come in. And I had noticed these patterns, like these change in behavior. So I was really
Going okay.
about it. So when I found out, oh,
How are you?
do we have everyone muted? Are we okay? So with this, I actually had the thought that like alcoholism, I was like, we can do this. If I'm honest, I was like, we can do this. Like alcoholism, families deal with this all the time. We have resources, we have a loving community. We have the community resources to support us. And we were in the fortunate position that we also had the finances that if we needed additional support, that was available to us. So I actually felt like when he shared this with me, that this was something we could do together. As we move forward, I recognized that we had different ideas on this. And I'll be honest, I didn't have a lot of experience with mental health challenges at this time. I also believe that James's journey was his own. I was not comfortable with gossip or storytelling. I didn't share this with friends and family until he was ready. So I felt very alone at this time. I was really encourage him to get help with our different supports in the community. So whether that was AA, our doctor, other therapists. We were living in Guelph, so there's the Homewood, if anyone's heard of that. That resource, you know, I felt as though we had a lot of options, but I was the one stepping out. I went to family services and had therapy. I went to the mental health and addiction center and worked with a counselor there. But I wasn't seeing the same initiative from him. So I almost felt like I was living like a secret life. I had my at-home life where I was keeping James's secret, and that whole world of being in love with an alcoholic who was struggling with what I call his inner demons, right? His mental health challenges. And then I went out into the world, like I still had to show up for work. I was I was a sole provider financially, and I also felt responsible for the lives of my husband, my children who were 2 and 3 at the time, and our dogs and our home and that type of thing. So in that whole journey and that stress, my health started to decline as well. And when I started seeing this, I really realized that I had this fear that if I was to become sick and or die, I would be abandoning my whole family. And that fear is actually kind of what prompted me to take all these different actions. And I started to build what I call is Team Allison. I decided that I had to reach out to these other community resources and give them a try when I started feeling unwell myself. So like I said, I have listed a few of them. So like I reached out to our doctor. The mental health and addiction center is set up with a beautiful counselor there that really helped, had some really strong messages for me for how to set boundaries and support myself and my family with a situation where someone is like a caregiver and in love with someone with mental health challenges and alcoholism. I even I tapped into the whole holistic health side of things, looking into my nutrition. How do I get my energy up to handle the things I'm doing in a day? I tapped into even spirituality and energy healing and looking at my body as a whole, and how do I get myself feeling good to step into the world and help take care of, in my mind at the time, take care of everyone else without being depleted. So in doing this, I received some pretty strong messages. So one of them I'd love to share is from the mental health counselor I worked with that totally changed my life. So at this time, you have to envision, I'm in my early 30s. I am an engineering consultant. I was a senior level project manager. I was trained and thought I could fix things, right? I'm the fixer. I did very well in my academics. I did very well in my career. So I almost had a perfectionism mindset. And I was like, I can do this. I will fix this and we'll move forward. And this will, it will all come together. So it was really interesting to have this counselor talk to me about what can I actually control? What do I have control over? And what do I have to allow James to have for his own journey? And how do I set up those respectful boundaries that I can still maintain my own health and wellness and energy by allowing him to have his journey as well. So I will say it was a very tough lesson for me in life. And if anyone has experienced, loving someone that has experienced mental health, alcoholism, addiction, or self-destructive behaviors, it's so hard to watch your loved one not take care of themselves or love themselves is truly, it is so hard. So stepping into that place where when I saw my own health decline, I was like, oh no, how do I support myself? So those are some of the community resources I reached out to build back my health and my strength so that I could be there when things were going sideways or chaotic. So during this time, so this was around, to give you a time period, around 2013. At this time, my husband and I, we separated due to some of the health behaviors that were happening in the home and my health decline. I didn't want this type of relationship and to be modeled for my children. So we separated for a little bit, and about 2.5 years later, we actually found my husband through a police wellness check. So every so often, I just want to let people know that this resource is available. If you are concerned about a loved one, you can call your local police and they do what they call a wellness check. And they literally go to the home where the person's living, they knock on the door and they just say, hey, loved ones are concerned, we're just checking in. And we had to do this with my husband a few times. He would be very present when he was feeling well, and then he would disappear for 6 to 10 weeks and we wouldn't hear anything. So tragically, during one of the police wellness checks, they actually found him deceased. So I was notified in February 2016 that he had died. So this opened up a whole nother journey, because I'll be honest, at that time, I still had hope, right? We weren't in an abusive relationship or anything like that. We were still communicating. I held out hope that he would get the support and take the action he needed. And I'm very sad to say that was not our experience. So at this point on, all of a sudden, February 2016, I'm a 36-year-old widow with 2 kids. So my children were 5 and 6 at the time. And we had to make some really tough decisions. So at that time, I decided to move back to my hometown of Belleville to be closer to my parents, and to start to build our life here. So you have to imagine, like, in my kids' world, this transition did not go well for them. um, they they had lost their dad, they had lost their home, right? Because we moved. They lost their school, their friends. Our dog had died. We also had other family members that had passed away during this time. We lived in 4 homes within a year until we got settled in the home we are in now in Belleville. So it was a bit, I call them life tsunamis. It was almost like we were hit by this tidal wave. We get our breath and we would be hit again. So, and all this time, I'm a solo parent in all respects, all decision making, all caregiving, financially, the whole deal. And at that time in 2018, I decided that I would leave my engineering career and focus on the health, the grief journey essentially of my kids. So I thought I was leaving my engineering career for my kids. I had intended it to be like a year or two just to catch our breath. I was having these visions of like, oh my goodness, they're 7 and 8 now, or 8 and 9 now. Like, what's it going to look like when they're teenagers if we don't take some time and space now? And what I found out very quickly after I had handed in my resignation letter was that I actually left my engineering career for myself. So it had almost been 2 years and I had not acknowledged my own grief journey. I had not actually referred to myself as a widow. I had not actually said the words, my husband died. I had always said my kid's father passed away, my kid's dad died, or James died. I referred to him by name. In my survival mode, I literally went into mama bear survival mode, and I projected that, and I tried to care for everyone else. And about 2.5 years after his death, I recognized, like, holy jeepers, like, you need to start addressing your own grief journey. So that's how, in April 2018, I left my engineering career. So I was a 38-year-old retired widow with 2 children. And I had never been in that world before. I'd never been a stay-at-home mom. I was a career woman. So there was a lot of, personal and professional development and in reflection that I did during that time. And I really wanted to step into this career of how do I combine my academics, work, and life experience to help others, right? So I have this very practical, process-related background in my engineering career as a project manager. I like efficient systems. And then I've also had this abundance of life experience in my mid 30s, right? So like I had been an executor of an estate prior to my parents ever doing that. You know, my parents were the younger siblings in their family. So when my grandparents passed away, they had not even been the executor of an estate. And here I was at 38 years old, and I have done this, right? Let alone running a whole household in every capacity. So I was talking to a friend about how do I pull these life experiences and work experiences together? And she said, have you ever heard of transformational life coaching? And at the time I hadn't. So I went out to, trusty Google and did a search. And I found this school. It's called the Health Coach Institute. And I went through and was certified for a health and life coach. And I did mastery program for transformational life coaching. And it really, I saw how everything kind of pulled together. So all of the engineering project management skills, I am an empath, right? Which wasn't, I'll be honest, wasn't typical in the engineering consulting world, that in my experience. So that combination of the, again, analytical process system related, like the way my mind thinks in that way, And then also having that feeling side, the empath side, was a very unique combination. And then also the relatability to so many audiences because of these life experiences I have entered into. So that was around November 2019, fully certified. I enter into the coaching world, and my son starts planting this seed of, Mom, have you ever thought about sharing your story in a book? Have you thought about what that could look like to connect with others? And I'll be honest, again, in my brain, I'm still an engineer. I write reports, I write emails, I summarize things in bullet lists, as you can see on my slides here. And I was like, I am not a writer. I'm not strong in English. So all of those beliefs I had or identity that I had, I can't write a book. I'm not an author. I'm not artsy. I'm math. I'm analytical. I'm science, fact-based, that type of thing, all those stories. And as I started networking in the life coaching world, I kept touching base with different people who have actually said, have you thought about writing a book? Have you thought about sharing your story in a book? And actually, Robert was one of those people. I think I spoke to him about a month before I entered this 30-day book writing challenge. So you have to think about this. I had a 15-year engineering career where I worked with people around the world. I managed environmental remediation, construction sites. I did groundwater remediation systems primarily, design, construction, build. My specialty was connecting with subcontractors and all those relationships. So I'd spend most of my engineering career behind a computer. When I started my life coaching career, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to see people. I'm going to be in touch with people. I'm going to run workshops. I'm going to do one-to-one coaching programs. This is going to be beautiful to connect with people. And then COVID came. And, I had a bunch of talks booked. I was working with clients in person, and all of a sudden I was back behind the screen, back behind the computer. And with the different restrictions, some of my clients had some overload with home responsibilities, right? Balancing the work and home, all working behind your computer. So anyway, I had a couple of clients that didn't renew, and I had this space. And I kept seeing an Instagram ad for a 30-day book writing challenge. And those seeds that were planted by my son and Robert and other people I connected with, when I saw this ad, I actually laughed, and I was like, there's no way you can write a book in 30 days. Like, that is not possible. I hear about people who had their manuscript on their computer or in their journals like for years, like, no way. But I had this time and space, and I was like, you know what? I'll give it a try. But it was more of a disbelief, to be honest. I was like, you can't do this. And to be honest, I also did not have an idea at the time other than sharing my story. So I entered this 30-day book writing challenge that's hosted by Joshua Sprague. And I'm being totally truthful. The first week we did an outline and kind of got some structure. And I had my book written in 10 days. 10 days to write my book with his method and his assignments. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't do it, to be honest. I shared my journey all on Instagram and Facebook with people. So the actual book writing with doing his assignments each day, we just connected. His teaching method was my learning style, and I blasted through that. He also provided support on how to self-publish on Amazon and how to market your book. So I worked with him to do that as well. And I will say the gap between writing my book, the editing, and the official launch, I think the whole process maybe took about 8 months. But I literally started writing the book mid-April, and I was into 2 weeks of editing by the end of May. I would say the actual tasks, if you focus on tasks only, were very straightforward. for me. And again, I have no writing experience other than technical writing and what I took through the Ontario public education system, right? Through high school. I just fully stepped in, letting go of those limiting beliefs, and I just did the work. Every morning I woke up and I did that assignment. And it took me about 2 hours a day for 10 days, and I had my full manuscript. Now, for me, the editing part took a little bit longer. I chose to take the summer off to be with my family, so I didn't work on it over the summer. So there were certain choices I made. And also, I would say the biggest thing was the mindset, right? You're not an author. Is this good enough? Um, Holy, this is a very vulnerable story. Like all those fears and those types of things coming up during the editing and launching process, those things added time. But when I actually sat down and did the task, it was actually quite efficient. And I will say it's possible. You've heard my story here. I do not have a writing background. And when I launched my book, I ended up being a #1 bestseller in grief and bereavement in the categories of alcoholism and recovery from alcohol. And it brought some amazing opportunities for me. So again, things like the speaking engagement. I was able to I've been on radio interviews, author talks, podcasts, conference speaking. I'm being published in the Umbrella magazine for the Quinte Arts Council for the spring edition coming up. There's just been some really beautiful opportunities that have come up. And also, I have 3 new coaching clients in my VIP program. So I just like to say for anyone that has that manuscript or has that story to share, it is possible to do this. I did not believe it. Was it quite a journey? Yes. And I would say it was more the mental, emotional side of it was what I found the biggest challenge. Challenging those limiting beliefs and actually going ahead and stepping out of the fear into empowered action. Yeah, but it is truly possible. So that comes to, I get this question a lot, is kind of like, why do you do this work? Like, why do you want to talk about death and grief and be so vulnerable all the time, right? And one of the things I really step into is that, especially with seeing my husband's journey and how quick the decline happened, um, and even just arranging and participating in his celebration of life, I really stepped into the reflection of what do I want people to say at my celebration of life? What do I want people to say at my funeral? And I thought if I could wrap my head around that or have some language around it, that it would make life easier moving forward because I would just create that experience in every interaction I do. And what I came up with is I wanted someone to say like, damn, I love that girl. I will miss her. I love the way that I felt about myself when I was with Allison. So I literally, once I got this language around it, I just fully stepped into living that way and creating those experiences for people. And it actually made a lot of my decisions to move forward feel easy or simplified. I don't know. Once I really pinpointed what life experience I wanted to have and what I wanted people to feel in my presence, it made the decisions just kind of fall into place. And I realized like how many people are actually struggling with that. Again, for my husband, I called them inner demons, right? But like the self-confidence, the self-love, recognizing and appreciating where you're at and what you're capable of. So that whole message of, your life matters and you are not alone, right? There's so many options out there. So bringing clarity and perspective is really what I'm stepping into. And like I said, once I got sort of some language around what is that experience I want to have in my life and others, it really made my path, my journey clear for me. So my vision is creating this empowerment ripple effect, right? I realize that there's only certain things that I can control. So I really focus on that one person, one family, one community at a time. And even that one person is sometimes working on me, right? Or working on that client or that one person interaction. And I've seen it ripple through. I realized that in my times, my life tsunamis, when I took care of myself, I could show up as my best self for my loved ones, for my kids, right? When I had rest and nutrition and that type of thing, I had patience. I could be patient with my toddlers when things got a little hairy and that type of thing, or when I had a bunch of situations coming to me where I had to make different decisions. Like, I started to learn that when I was well rested, when I was taking care of my health, and I could fully step into what were my priorities, and my priorities are health and family. So it makes decision making very easy because I check in. What is the response? What's the decision that supports health for myself and others and family? So in this, it sort of brought me to working with a variety of people. I would say most people that reach out to me are people who they're ready. They're ready to embark on their journey of restoring inner peace. Um, they've had, they're ready to do the work, step up, take responsibility for their path and their life journey. People will, what can this look like in somebody's life? So people who have experienced loss, and loss can come in many forms, right? Grief is many forms of loss. It's not always death. But again, with my life experiences, I build rapport and connect very well with people who have lost a loved one from death, separation, divorce. Even with the whole career change, that's a form of loss. My identity for so long, if someone asked, Allison, who are you or what do you do? My answer was engineer. I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer. So having that career transition actually did change my whole identity with myself. I also work with people who are actually fearful of loss. So that's when I say things like the fear of abandonment. They think that if they take a life change or have a different approach or perspective on something, that they will lose connection with their loved ones. They'll lose respect in their workplace. Any of that type of thing, that love, safety, belonging, if you have that fear of loss, so you won't take an action that you might want to. I had originally set out my book to support people that are in love with an alcoholic or an addict. And how do you support yourself as that caregiver of that person that truly loves the person who's struggling, and recognizing that you can't fix them. You can only be by their side on their journey for as long as you can still remain healthy, right? I also I tend to work with alcoholics. They seem to reach out to me and connect with me. Again, caregivers. So anyone who is, I take care of my parents as well. So senior care, ourselves as busy parents, the sandwich generation. Again, parents who have children and looking for those perspectives. And then also this whole thing of perfectionism, right? Like thinking if you're not perfect, you'll lose that connection. So, or that love or that respect or that, that it's okay to make mistakes. Those are kind of the traits that people have when they're looking to work for me. The other thing would be looking for accountability. So in my teachings, I've developed this Transform by Love 4-step action plan. And I use this method to help release fears and move forward with empowered action. So I typically work with people who are struggling with overcoming fears of abandonment so that they can like they can just build that strong, healthy relationship within themselves and into others, right? So that was when I was talking about the empowerment ripple effect. And using this 4-step action plan. So the L is for looking inward. So it's actually taking that moment to figure out what's going on inside for you. The O is observing your feelings. So it's being very truthful, like what is scaring the crap out of you? What is your fear? How would you rather be feeling? What do you want to feel in these situations? V is looking at validating options. So maybe this is my engineering side that comes in, right? It's like, what's actually within your control? And just brainstorming, like, what are the different options here? Because a lot of the times when we are stressed out, we are very much in tunnel vision mode, right? We see one path and we default to past behaviors versus taking that time to see what other options might be available to us. And then E is actually stepping into action. So when you're validating your options, you're looking, like I had shared with you, I tap into what supports health and what supports family. And that's what I check into when I validate my options. And then it helps me make my choice to move into action. So I do share this 4-step action plan when you join my email list. It's a free download, and it's also something I go into more depth when I work with people in my coaching program. So these are just various ways that people work with me. I do the one-to-one VIP coaching programs. I have a 30 and 90-day program. I'm open to doing author and conference talks. I'm the co-host of a Death Cafe Quinty. It's a monthly event that me and my beautiful neighbor do. It's the 3rd Wednesday of every month. It's free. It's from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. And if you want to check us out, it's just on Facebook, Death Cafe Quinty. And that's just a space where it's an open space to speak about death and dying. I'm also an essential oils educator. So if anyone is interested on how those natural solutions can help support your life, my passion in that area is with the mental health support that aromatherapy and essential oils can help with. And then I'm also developing an online course. So it will be from the basis of restoring inner peace. That will be coming out soon. And the best way to get a hold of me is through my website. You can purchase my book through my website, and you can, as I said, join the email list if you want to stay connected with me. And there's also the opportunity to get that free download. I also offer a free 1-hour empowered life discovery session. If you are someone that is seriously looking at the VIP coaching program, the one-to-one coaching, so that opportunity is available as well. So I just noticed the time, and I just want to say thank you to everyone. I really appreciate your time and energy today. And a special thank you to Robert Mundell for inviting me for this opportunity.
Thank you, Allison. It's a lovely presentation. We can open it up in the time that we have left, 10 minutes or so for questions from the participants. So anyone who would like to jump in with a question for Allison, now's the time. We do have a question in the chat from Heather, who was looking for more information about the 30-day writing challenge. If you had some resources or some brief information to share about that, she's looking for some clarity on that.
Yeah, so I can look that up. I know that Joshua is promoting it right now on Instagram. So he actually has trademarked that program, that challenge. So it's called the 30-day book writing challenge, and his name is Joshua Sprague. I can try and find the direct email from that. And maybe, I don't know if Robert, if you're going to send out the recording or the PDF.
She says in the chat again, she's more interested in the steps. So
so what it was is each day so Monday to Friday, you receive an email with an assignment. And then you complete the assignment for that day.
Great. Other questions or comments for Allison? I forget, Allison, how we originally connected. It must have been through LinkedIn, I suppose, but I'm glad we did. And it's been an interesting journey following you through your writing process and keeping in touch with you over the past year, I guess, and seeing it come to a finished product and then having you join us today. It's been great. I really appreciate knowing you and your time for us today.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's, well, I don't know if you remember our initial conversation. You were actually really suggesting looking into writing a book, and I'll be honest, I was very hesitant. I was like, I don't write books. Like, what are you talking about? And then literally almost 2 months later, a month or two later, I'm like, hey, Robert, I'm writing a book. Guess what?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to quickly say, I believe Riel, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but if we can connect somehow, June 14th seems to be the closest to June 12th. So if you could send your contact information to Robert, or if Robert has that, then I can mail you a copy.
Okay. And Kara, looks like Kara has a question for you.
Yes.
Hey, Allison, thanks for this. I missed part of your story. I was on a phone call that took longer than I wanted it to. So now I'll find your book. But I was wondering if you could say more about how the Death Cafe is going. I'm just so intrigued about that happening so close. I'm actually in Prince Edward County, so I'm even closer than I usually am in Kingston. But
oh, beautiful. Yeah. Well, I'm right in Belleville. So yeah, so I've been doing this for about a year and a half. So the Death Cafe is like an international, I don't know what you want to say, movement, I guess. It was created by a gentleman, I believe, in the UK. So you can find out more information about the general structure on deathcafe.com. So what it is literally, we open this space to have any conversation around death or dying. So there's no agenda, no presentation. My neighbor, Arifa Stewart, and myself, literally, we started off in person having like a cafe, right? Where people could join, and you literally sit at tables and you can talk about anything. It's like people, it's such a sensitive conversation for some people, and for some people it's difficult to talk to your loved ones about that because they've also lost the loved one as well. So it's typically a group of strangers that come together and we talk about anything and everything to do with death and dying. Again, there's no agenda. We do not present. We don't solicit our services or anything like that. That is not allowed. It's literally, we hold this open space for whatever comes up in that space. So we actually have one next Wednesday on the 16th, if you're curious about it. Currently, we're doing it on Zoom just because, you know, the world is up in the air. We're hoping to get back in person, but the Zoom has actually allowed us to have people from a wider reach as well. But literally, like, we talk anything from like end of life care, suicide, death, like literally made, right? Yeah. Like anything. But I think what's so comforting is that some people have things on their heart and on their mind, and it's not always well received, right? Like, you don't go to your family dinner and you're like, hey, you know, I've been really struggling with making the decision about MAID, you know, like, you know, some families, maybe you can do that, but sometimes it's so hard to have that conversation with your direct loved ones. So this creates a confidential, safe space to speak about some of this stuff. And if I am honest, most of the time we talk about how we project this into living your fullest life. So Arifa and I have received many comments like you're morbid and you're like all this stuff. Most of our conversations, yes, we do talk about death and that, but we also relate it on to, well, how do we accept this as part of the life process, and how do we make it into the most fulfilling life experience? And yeah, it's a combination of people, right? Like some people, they're contemplating their own death, or they're at end of life or whatever. Some are caregivers who are caring for people at end of life or with illnesses. Some people have lost, like there's a few widows like myself in the group. Yeah, so it's a broad range and there's no commitment, right? Like you could show up once and never come back, or you can show up every month. So it's really a mixed bag.
Nice. And how many people are you generally having show up?
Yeah, there's usually probably around 9 of us, 10 of us.
Nice. And if
Online, it's a nice size because I was worried that people wouldn't get the opportunity. Like it takes courage to log into that Zoom meeting, to be honest. And I recognize that. So it's a great number for the online so far.
Nice. And if I just Google it, will I find it? Like, will it come up on Facebook or something, or?
Yeah, so Death Cafe Quinty, we have our own Facebook page. So if you go to Death Cafe Quinty, and then if you're just curious about Death Cafe in general, it's deathcafe.com. But yeah, us specifically, we just have the Facebook page. We want it simple.
Beautiful. 9 people's a lot. Like that sounds like such a gift to the community.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting how when you step into this stuff, even the world of life coaching, you step in it to help other people. But I'll be honest, like it's a beautiful gift for myself too, if I'm being a little selfish here. It's just a wide range of perspectives on some conversations that may or may not happen, right? Like I know within my own family, like going in and talking to my family, about deaths or their death or my death or whatever is hard, right? So yeah, it's been really, and we share resources, we share, our tips and like, for example, our last one, we were talking about how healing it is to actually just step outside and take breaths and see the sky, right? If you're looking for that connection with your loved one, how healing something like that is, and it's available to everyone. So it's some of those things, if you come in with an open mind, open heart, you might surprise yourself with some useful tools and techniques that might work for you. Yeah.
Thank you again, Allison. Any from the community here, any final thoughts, questions, comments for Allison? We're reaching the top of the hour.
Allison, I would just like to say, as someone who has written a book and knows that it takes certain discipline and passion, I'm in awe that you were able to do it the way that you did. And I just want to congratulate you. It's just been a wonderful presentation, and thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Anne. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, we are at the top of the hour. We're out of time. We do have the address, Allison. I'll send you to send the book on to the free copy of the book on to one of the participants. And thank everybody for joining us today. And a special thank you to you, Allison, for being with us, for sharing your story and all the interesting details you talked about today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a great day.